Hey, let me ask you a question. Where are you guys from?
San Diego.
And what'd you do? You drove here? Why'd you drive here?
We wanted to see this. Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and Billy D. Williams are here.
When you watch the movies, you can tell that they were made by people who really cared about what they were doing. Seeing this part of it filmed, and there's all of the props around, and there's people lying on the ground, and it's all cruddy, but you know that they're going to take it back and put in the opticals, and it's going to be totally different.
I mean,
so
we're all in Tatooine right now, so that's terrific, you know. By the time all 9 films are done, it's going to be like, I mean, I'm afraid to see what you guys are going to come up with. It's going to be amazing.
I've always called it a space fantasy, designed to be a modern fairy tale.
Hopefully, it will, justify it as a series, make you say, gee, what happens next? I think the real satisfaction will come out of completing what we started out to do. And I don't think there's been anything quite like this, a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Action. The fun begins.
How long before you can make the jump to light speed?
Take a few minutes for the Navi computer to calculate the coordinates.
A few minutes? Are you kidding? At the rate they're gaining?
What is it? You have to shoot this. Traveling through hyperspace is like dusting Crops, kid. Without precise calculations, we fly too close to a store, or bounce into a supermarket, and then...
Yeah.
It'd be a hell of a mess.
What's that?
Watch. You're losing the deflector shields. Go strap yourselves in. Be careful on the way out.
Yeah, sure. I'm taking it very cautiously.
You... Go away!
Bounce too near a supermarket?
It's a righteous challenge.
You die in the movie?
No. Not yet, anyway. No, I understand. They want to carry this character on. Continue. I think he's going to be part of the heroes,
Well, look at you, a general, huh?
The Blockade Runner is the first ship that you ever see in Star Wars, the ship that is running from the Imperial Star Destroyer.
It's the first time we ever see Princess Leia, and so it was trying to link this last, how we've introduced her, and this is how we finish her.
I will probably always be identified as this person. Vivian Leigh was always Scarlett O'Hara, except to Olivier. I don't know. I will probably be Princess Leia till I'm 85 years old. Are you happy now?
I give George huge credit for creating Princess Leia. Certainly one of the feistiest.
In the fairy tales, a princess is to be rescued, and she was far from being a damsel in distress.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
Huh? She found both Han and I incompetent. It still makes me laugh.
What the hell are you doing?
Somebody has to save our skins.
She's just authoritative and just plows ahead. It doesn't matter. Let's go through this shower of asteroids. Who cares? And my hair won't get messed up. So she's different from. I like her. I like her independence, and I do wish that I had a little bit more of. Come on, let's just walk through the traffic. It doesn't bother me. It's not I won't get hurt. There's a sequel. So on that level, I envy her. I admit it.
I don't know the luck.
These two performances of Mark Hamill and Carrie at the appropriate age.
Another, and of course it refers to Leia. And we thought that was kind of a promise that had not yet been fulfilled.
On guard, dialogue.
I took karate, kendo, and did a little bit of weight training. They sort of want to mix that martial arts flavor in with the traditional foil fencing.
That's good. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Here we have to rest now.
Okay, that's it. All right.
I can't talk now. I'm out of breath.
He's becoming better than Errol Flynn.
What do you mean by difficult?
This is unusual. It's the opposite of Vader. Someone who almost starts the most vulnerable.
As evil as human beings have been, how can those people possibly exist? Compassion,
and greed. We all have those two sides of us. We have to make sure that those two sides of us are in balance.
What happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance.
Interact with that past.
The idea came up of, well, what if Palpatine lived on in some way? Within about 30 seconds of discussing that idea, we just knew that it was the right idea, because we knew that this has always been a story of Skywalkers and Palpatines.
It's the same things that their predecessors had dealt with. It just felt poetic.
Turn of the Jedi, I was suddenly the Emperor of the universe. So then to get this call.
Welcome, young Skywalker. I have been expecting you.
Good.
It's just very exciting to be here.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
No, hold on, it's peaceful. We have no weapons. You
would
can't...
prefer another target, a military target, then name name it, now!
Well, a lot of times it has impossible dialogue to say. You can type it, like Harrison says, you can type it fine. There's no way to say it.
You!
The actual production is shot in England, and also Star Wars, by the nature of the exotic environments that we deal with, we sort of travel all around the globe and have things going on various continents, actually.
Here in 1976, sand dunes and all that. This was the desert in Jordan. These strange craggy shapes with a kind of miasma of sand below them, so the whole thing kind of melted into one. It was heart-turning.
That way it's much too rocky. Or the moment in Empire Strikes Back where he says the chances of successfully navigating an asteroid field are 3,720 to 1. But in the original, it had said the chances of successfully navigating an asteroid field are 3,725 to 1.
You know, on the other shot, when I says to Arthur, you know, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
I've already seen them, so they ought to be kind of in the doorway.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to cut it, but...
That whole end of it is a little tricky.
Just throw it all away. Cut me out of this, make it easier.
He has a way of tilting his head or raising it back that's, it says more probably than a person would do.
The face itself has no expression, but I find working with Tony Daniels, who plays the part, you read expressions into that face. To me, he has an incredibly mobile face. He looks quizzical, he's, you know when he's in danger.
I can't stop myself making something. Nobody can see what I'm doing. But for myself, I'm doing all the actions. And people come up and they take the face and they say, oh, I'll try this on. And they put it on. And
I rather love 3PO. I think he's a nice guy. I think he gets a rough time, but that's part of the magic of it.
I remember at our cast dinner where everyone had started reading the script.
Characters and situations and effects. I thought they would have used them all up on the first Star Wars. And, you know, I arrive in the studio and there's something quite magical to see in some new monster. I saw one today, great sort of splodge thing. And it's, of course, great fun to act with all that, and it's very stimulating.
This is my favorite part.
You can't sort of go home and rehearse your reaction to a 9-foot ice monster breaking through a wall. You know, you just have to go on the day and see what happens. But it's never dull.
And there are numerous pieces of greebly, which is an English term for dressing on the barge, aircraft pieces that are made to look into a kind of a space configuration.
When we recorded the music of the first film, none of us had any idea that we'd ever hear the music again. I feel very privileged to have been able to do all of them to this point. I don't think there's anything quite like it in the history of film. We have the opportunity over decades to take the same material.
They always knew I'd be in Stuart Freeburn's shop. I remember Stuart whipping up the green foam that they were going to pour into the Yoda mold.
Complex one, the most sophisticated one is the smallest one, that is the Yoda. He's only 2 foot high, and of course he has to have all the animation that's possible to give him. We which is difficult on such a small creature. He could even steal the picture. That would be great if he does. That's when, of course, it's that much more satisfying.
3PO is, I think, very like an English butler. He's that particularly British sort of person, very archaic and rather out of his time.
And action!
And consequently, he finds all the things that happen in Star Wars, you know, the battles, the explosions, all the nasty characters like Darth Vader. He finds that very worrying.
Tony! Look!
3PO is in some ways the
dark side, Darth Vader, and sacrificed himself for everybody. And now 3PO is doing the same thing.
3PO, I think he's one of the more human characters in the film.
Bands is actually the trench that Luke flies down.
we came across a really big issue,
which is where Darth Vader and Luke fought for a bit.
To find a way to show that Luke, even in death, was a Jedi Master who was helping the next generation. We thought about Empire Strikes Back and how the one thing that Luke doesn't manage to do in Empire is raise his X-Wing out of the swamp in Dagobah. When we saw in Episode 8 that the X-Wing was under the water,
He's every boy or girl who yearns for adventure, who thinks this can't be all there is.
Something as large as Star Wars, which is a very, very complicated kind of movie, it really needs a lot of people all working together to make it to make it happen.
The sketch that Ralph McQuarrie did, it felt like a spiky shadow emerging from the back of a conversation between the Emperor and Vader.
Most of these things are rather hazy. They just feel right, you know, sometimes, and sometimes they don't. So you just keep fiddling until they start to feel right.
I showed it to some of the guys that had worked on the original movies. They were excited about what we were doing.
Red 2, standing by. Look at the size of that thing.
Because obviously with miniatures you have an issue with physically the size of the camera.
Situation, you know, it's like being in your senior year. You're glad that you're finishing, but savoring every moment because you know it is the last.
There's a famous shot of Luke sort of leaning over it and talking to his aunt. And we want to try and get that same callback.
This was the first set I ever saw out in Tunisia.
We thought we'd finish off Star Wars exactly as it's supposed to be.
I think everybody recognized that there are giant
Jedi.
I like these films. I like that I was there.
We all realized that it would take more of these films to bring the story full circle.
To see not just my character, but every last character that you've been introduced to since the very beginning find their destiny. It's exactly how it had to be.
It just goes by so quickly once they're in and getting the shots and stuff. And then it's all still again afterwards.